Awesome. Thank you, ladies. And you'll be hearing from them later on in the presentation. But I will first just to give you a little bit of background about Stride. Again, you may have seen us as K-12, but we've moved or changed our name to Stride Inc. We've been around for about 20 years now, and we recently changed to Stride because we wanted to focus on the learning being lifelong. We provide online education from K through 12, but since we've moved to Stride, we're focusing on the student being a lifelong learner. So we have acquired some other companies such as Galvanize, Hack Reactor, Tech Elevator, and MedCerts. Some of these companies, they do coding boot camps. With MedCerts, they focus on medical certification, but we have expanded, so we're also doing college prep courses as well as career development as well. So you'll still see K-12. That name is still around when you look at the different schools that we do provide, but overall it falls under the umbrella of Stride Inc. So now I'm going to turn it over to Erica Cunningham so she can tell us a little bit more about our schools.
Hey, everybody. So just some general overview about both of our schools. Arizona Virtual Academy was our first school in Arizona in operation, started in 2001. We do offer grades K through 12 at that AZVA, and I will note that our high school is more of the college prep high school. For our students 7 through 12. So we do partner with Rio Salado, and many of our students get to take college courses while still in high school. So that's an awesome opportunity. We do have currently around 7,000 students in K through 12 at AZVA. And for both of our schools, our students have to reside in Arizona, and our staff have to reside in Arizona as well and be Arizona certified. Insight is our alternative school for grades 7th through 12th, and we have about 1,400 students at that school, and that school became a school 2012, and we are hiring for all positions at both schools and really in need of math, English, and special education.
Thank you, Erica. So now we're going to just give you a little bit of background of how virtual teaching works here at Stride. And I'm going to have, I'll first start with our kindergarten, and we'll work our way up from kindergarten to middle school to high school and even special education. So Carly, if you would like to just tell us a little bit about your experience being a kindergarten teacher for Stride.
Sure. I actually just moved to kindergarten. I was in 3rd grade for all the years prior to this, but it has been a lot of changes, especially in the last year or so with online teaching, and a lot of families that are finding what a great program our school has to offer and how our curriculum is really, really very amazing and a lot higher rigor than maybe some traditional schools in the area as well.
Thank you, Carly. And Alyssa, you are a 1st grade teacher, and I wanted to hear more about your experience as well.
Absolutely. So this is my first year with virtual education. Definitely had those nerves, I think, going in for the first time after being used to the brick and mortar setting, but it's been such a great year. I think I had some big fears going into the school year of, am I going to make connections with my students? Am I going to make connections with my families? Am I going to make connections with my teammates? And I've made some of the best connections in all my years of education with those that I work at in this setting. My typical week, Monday through Thursday, we focus a lot in 1st grade with homeroom sessions where we work with all of our students together. We'll be doing lessons in math, ELA, writing. Fridays are fun because in addition to homeroom sessions, we also do clubs and social time where we just really get to know and interact with the kids as well. Another favorite thing I have too is throughout the week, in addition to our homeroom classes, we get to do so much small group work with our students. So it makes it so easy to differentiate our instruction and really be able to reach all of our different types of learners where they're at and just help them grow through the school year. So we work a structured 40-hour a week schedule throughout the week. And then each day we probably teach live for about 4 to 4.5 hours each day with our live instruction. And then the extra time we have, we really get to focus on our families. So we get to call and help support our families, send emails to our families, work as a team as well and as a school. We've had such a great amount of students this year that our team sizes have been rather large, which means we have so many amazing people to work with to help create lessons together, just to help look over data together as well. So it's keeps you busy through the day, but it's wonderful and you build really strong connections here.
Thanks, Alyssa. Now, moving towards our middle school, I'll have Kristen to tell us a little bit about what it's like teaching middle school.
Thank you so much. And I just want to tag on to everything that Alyssa had to say. She did a great job explaining what the job is like here in the middle school too. I did see something in chat where people were asking, do you ever get together in person with your students? And the answer is, we certainly hope so again soon. We used to do a lot of that. We used to do a lot of meet the teacher kind of events, or going to science fairs together, or the Renaissance Festival, or zoos, and had so many really fun activities. But because of the pandemic, a lot of those things got set aside for this past year. But we are so hopeful that we get to get back and see our students live again this next year. In fact, all teachers are responsible for state testing, and we got to see our students at state testing this year. And I was never so glad to do state testing because I got to see children, and it was really fun to do that. At the middle school, the day seems very similar to like the first grade teacher. We have homeroom. We spend a lot of time connecting with families. So if we're not in the classroom teaching, we're on the phone, we're sending emails, we're really trying to connect with families, whether it's to share good news about those students or to really reach out to families and try to get their children to engage if they aren't otherwise doing so. At the middle school, we also have multiple hours of live instruction during the day. We're teaching Tier 1 classes, MTSS small group classes. We have one-on-one sessions. We're in help labs. If we're not teaching, if we're not connecting with families, we're collaborating. We're working with other teachers to look at data and see what we can do collectively together to make instruction better so our students can succeed. We also have a lot of fun. We have, I think, 45, maybe a few more clubs in the middle school that really focus on student and teacher passions. We do a lot of training, whether it's in professional development or individual live trainings through K-12 training. There are so many opportunities for teachers. And then one other thing I want to talk about that we talk about with prospective people all the time is that sometimes people think when you're teaching online in an environment like this that you're alone. And I will tell you that you are more connected to support in this kind of a job than you ever could be in a brick and mortar school. If you have a problem that goes on in your classroom, you are an IM away from an administrator being able to pop into your classroom. If you don't know how to handle something, you can quickly IM another teacher and say, hey, this is happening in class, and they're teaching the same lesson as you, and they can give you some feedback immediately. So the support you get is just unbelievable. And that's what I've got to say for now.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I also want to have Brittany to talk to us a little about her experience as well as middle school.
Yes. So, like I said before, I am in the sales program, which is the self-contained special education. It is slightly different in our program, but I just want to piggyback onto what the other two were saying that. Especially in terms of making connections and relationship with your students. I mean, I taught in brick and mortar for 5 years before I came here. And one of the things that I was worried about was that connection and relationships. And really, I felt just as connected to my kids and still that same sadness I feel on the last day of school when you say goodbye to them and you just get so emotional. It's the same thing. I mean, I built the same relationships. You have the same, if not more, communication with families because you're constantly interacting with them. And just like a self contained special education teacher, you are the case manager. You know, you see your kids for every subject. So during the week, the schedule is similar to what Janet was saying in terms of like the number of hours a day that you're teaching, perhaps a little less, probably about 3 to 4 hours a day. But you are the primary teacher typically for those kids. So they come to you for all of those subjects for math, ELA, social studies, science, life skills, all of those things. And you do have a life skills class that you teach too as a sales teacher, as special education. So we make sure that even though it is virtual, you're still covering a lot of those topics that you would also cover in brick and mortar in a self contained classroom. So they're still working on all those same goals. And your caseload is limited too. As a self contained teacher, there is still that recognition here that you have a smaller caseload so you can focus on those individual needs a lot more. Students are grouped not only by grade, but also by ability level. So we have 3 different levels typically that we have kids separated in. So it makes it really easy to differentiate and individualize based on what you need to do as a special education teacher. And I also wanted to say too, because if you have any experience in special ed, curriculum is also provided. You are given so many resources for special education, so much more than what I had when I was in brick and mortar special ed. I was so excited when I came. So definitely having those resources is great. Having the collaboration is a big thing. Um, and still being able to make all those connections with both your students and the staff that you work with. I mean, like they were saying, really it is, you're having a struggle. It's so easy to get a hold of somebody, whether it's your administrator or a peer teacher. And that collaboration is great because, you know, we teach 18 classes a week. And so that allows a lot of collaboration time. You have time to plan your lessons, to meet with your team members, to look for resources, to properly connect with families, and to give them the time that they need to do things. So yes, I just made the switch this year to AZVA, and it has been nothing but positive for me. I just was having another meeting saying, you know, it's been such a good change for me. I'm so glad that I did it.
Thanks, Brittany. And last but certainly not least, we're going to also talk about high school. And so we have Brandy to tell us a little bit about her experience as a high school sales teacher as well.
Yes, so I am the high school sales teacher. That's self-contained special education. So it does look a little bit different from middle school to high school because we try to give the kids the high school experience of having different teachers for the different core classes. So for me, I would teach the science and social studies for the students. They would have a separate teacher for ELA and a separate teacher for math, because in high school they do like to have like the different teachers to go around. Almost in the brick and mortar, they're going to different classes. They're just going to see the different teachers throughout the day. But for us high school teachers, we do collaborate very closely. So um, within the students, we still have that small caseload. As Brittany was talking about, they do like to try and manage like how much of how many students are on your caseload, which is nice and nice coming into this because I know in previous schools that I taught in the brick and mortar, they were just the numbers kept on climbing and climbing and climbing, and like you just get overwhelmed. But it's nice to know that it's a reasonable amount of students on your caseload. You can talk with the other two high school teachers like on a constant basis, which we have time to every single day to see how the student is doing in math and ELA, as well as science, social studies. They do have the life skills class for ninth and 10th graders. Um, And then once they hit 11th and 12th graders, they do go into a transitions class. So that's just going to be a little bit more geared towards the kiddos that are almost ready to graduate. What do they want to do when they're ready to graduate? And how to go about life after high school, whether it's job, whether it's community college, um, anything out in the real world. What, like, if they need help with anything or questions on anything, that's gonna kind of get them their gears turning for what to do outside of high school. Um, but yeah, I am just gonna piggyback off of what Brittany said, that it's nice to be able to collaborate with everyone and all your teachers. Um, it's nice to know that you can reach out if you need any help with creating lesson plans or having other ideas, but you're not quite sure if other teachers have tried anything like virtual field trips and things like that and how they went about it. As well as having a good connection with families and students. I had the same worries of, am I going to have as close of a connection to the students and families when I come in here? But I feel like it's even more so because, like Brittany said, we're in constant communication with the students and families on a daily basis. It's nice knowing that your schedule has the time slotted for the classes that you're teaching, but you also have your IEP prep time, and the time slots for just the meetings for IEPs. Because I know that it was always crazy having to deal with that in the brick and mortar of your schedule's all over the place. You're trying to work around everyone else's schedule. I do think that there is one big benefit that I really, really loved coming into this last year, which was my first year. Um, Scheduling. I did not like scheduling in the brick and mortar for IEPs and all of that. And just coming in knowing that there's a person that literally will schedule all of your IEPs for you. So you're not constantly trying to talk to the gen ed teacher, the speech teacher, OT, yourself, administration. Like, you're not the go-to. Like, that's one less worry to have to worry about. And I feel like that just makes it so much more easier to focus on planning and connecting with the families, and even getting the IEPs written and everything that you need to do as a teacher done. Um, so I think I covered everything that I wanted to, but yeah, I love it here. I'm glad I made the switch as well.
Thank you so much, Randy. So you heard from kindergarten, middle school, high school, special education, just some of their experiences from day to day. So moving forward, if not hearing all of that wonderful information is something that would interest you, I wanted to give you a few more things that you would receive if you joined either Insight or Arizona Virtual. Again, they did touch on it, but we do provide support and training, whether that's through professional development that they will have. We also have continuing education opportunities. I know, for an example, we have Southern New Hampshire University, which is SNHU. We partnered with them where you can earn your master's of education, and also there's other specializations that you can receive if you decide to do that. We also have teacher trainers. So again, I saw somebody answer earlier what type of support on their first year. We do have teacher trainers to support first year teachers with questions that they may have throughout the year. So again, you are very much connected to your team, as well as different teacher trainers to help you develop. So as well as employee resource groups that we do offer for employees. When we have a different range, we have a women's group, which is WOW. We have Build for our African American community. We have another group for our LGBTQ plus group, and we also have a group for veterans as well. So we have many different trainings as well as support for employees. In moving to benefits, we do provide medical, dental, vision, as well as 401k, and as well as other benefits such as for PTO and commuter benefits as well. Something that wasn't on this slide, we do provide your equipment. So you would get a headset and a laptop. And then again, you have access to a lot of other resources to help you with teaching as well. So moving forward, I'm going to have Jill, our recruiter for Arizona, to talk to us about how you would apply to Stride for our positions, and then we'll also tell you about the current positions that we do have opening before we move into our Q&A session.
Thank you, Drea. Yeah, so I know that there was some conversation going on in the chat about what positions we currently have open. So right now we're hiring for the fall for next school year. We have just about every position and subject or grade level and subject open right now. You can find all of the opportunities that we have in the state of Arizona for Insight Arizona, as well as in Arizona Virtual, on our careers page, which is highlighted here on stridelearning.com/careers. It's easy for you to get into that. You can click on it, as it says down here, the teaching and academic support opportunities, and then from there you can filter into the state of Arizona. One thing to note, as Erica had said earlier in the introductions, is that we do ask that our teachers reside in the state of Arizona and hold an Arizona state teaching certification. So those are the requirements that we do have. I noticed someone had said earlier as well that they're relocating, so that's great. But we would require that there is a residency policy, and so we would require that you do reside in that state and hold this certification. You'll have all of our contact information at some point in time. If not, you can send an email to the recruiting team, which will also be on the Stride Careers page if any questions pop up. But I encourage all of you to review all of the openings that we do, share the openings with your friends or colleagues, and all of the descriptions do state that the policies, as well as the framework of what the job entails. I think the group here did a fabulous job of really kind of framing that for you and kind of a day in the life of a teacher. And so that the job descriptions that you see will reflect that, but that in person, or that the knowledge that they talked about kind of piggybacks onto that. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with any of us, but all of our contact information will be on the careers page for recruiting, will be on the careers page. And I think someone's posting stuff in the chat session too. So please let us know if you have any questions, specific questions about the opportunities. But yeah, we're looking forward to having you apply. Oh, and here you go. So it's good. So step by step, if you go to the careers page, you want to select the academic teacher opportunities. And then from there, you can look at all of the different opportunities. You can apply to many different positions. If you feel like you have middle school and high school experience and you have endorsements and the right certification to teach both, please apply to both. If you're strictly just elementary, there's many different elementary positions as well. So, and again, please don't hesitate to ask questions if anything pops up. During the interview process or application process, there will be questions that we do ask you. So once we review your profile, we will ask and invite you to do a digital interview with us. And essentially what that is you will be asked to present a lesson that's formulated for you. We want you to kind of speak to that lesson plan, upload it, record it, and upload it to us so that these wonderful academic administrators here and hiring managers can be able to look at your digital interview. You'll get about, I think there's some time that you get to review, and you can redo your digital interview, but it will ask you like for a 2-part series. So you'll first get an introduction of what you need to do from the recruiting team, and then you'll get a secondary invite from HireView to do a digital screen. And that's where you would upload a video of your lesson plan. And then from there, it will also ask you to answer some additional questions in a screen like this, in a Zoom type platform where you're talking to yourself, and then that goes to the hiring team. Again, I can walk through any of this with you, and I just wanted, this is good information for you to know that, you know, what are the different phases in the application process. So like we had said, there's many different opportunities that we currently have with Arizona Virtual and Insight. So these are just a few. You know, we have the special education positions where we have the self-contained, as well as the resource type teachers that are in elementary through high school as well. And then middle school math, science, social studies. We also have technology. If anyone on the call today is a technology teacher, we're also looking for those type of roles as well.
Thank you so much, Jill. Now, before we move to our Q&A, if you haven't already followed us, we are on social media. We have, well, follow us at Careers at Stride, where we're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We post about different events that are coming up. We try to talk about different things that are going on, I would say, in the office, well, virtually, since we're all working virtually, but we try to post different things that different employees are doing. And also, you can join our talent community if you either scan the QR code that is on the screen right now, or you can click the link in the chat box as well, where you can get alerted to different events that we have going on as well. So we've come to the part where everyone can participate. It is the Q&A part of our webinar. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask, you can either put them in the chat box and we can answer them for you. Either some of our teachers can answer or myself. And I did see a few were asking questions, so thank you for answering those. I see one, someone was asking, do you contribute for the AZVA Pension program? And that's, I guess I can ask Erica if you wanted to ask that, or Jill, if you wanted to answer that.
Yeah, we do. We do not pay into the Arizona Retirement. We do have our own matching 401k, and you are eligible to participate in that program after 1 month of employment.
I do see. Someone was asking about the pay scale, Jill.
We don't have a typical pay scale that you would have at maybe a traditional brick and mortar school where you have, you know, a step schedule. We don't have that. We do look at certification, we do look at experience, but we don't have anything that's published or a pay scale that we hourly put out there. But I can talk to you more offline about, like, if you want to reach back out to us, I can talk to you more about compensation and how that works.
And I've seen a few about teacher training, what that's like. I'm not sure if that was answered in the chat, but if one of the teachers or someone wants to go over that.
I can always go over that.
Cool.
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Listen, you're more recent. I'll let you do it.
I was gonna say it's been recent for me this year. What's great is they have you probably have saw the word onboarding throughout the chat as well as it was going through. Onboarding is what we call our new teacher training. Before the school year starts, you're taking a lot of different synchronous and asynchronous trainings to help you be prepared for the school year. What's nice is though the training doesn't stop when the school year begins. You're constantly having check-ins with a mentor teacher. You have lead teachers. And then our sites as well, at least for elementary, we also have lead master teachers as well who come in to help. One of the great things with being a first year teacher, especially to virtual for the first time, is lessons are recorded. And so from people who have been teaching before, we were able to view some of their recordings ahead of time as well, just so we could see what that interaction looked like and to view an entire lesson from start to finish from the teachers to get a really good idea of what those classroom settings look like. And so it's great and so much support through the school year just to make sure that you're feeling good and you're feeling prepared for everything coming on. So I think that answers most of it.
I want to mention that for when you start as a special ed teacher, you do start a few days before the actual gen eds do for training purposes, because that gets you ready for getting access to IEP Pro and how do you do your IEP meetings, because it's going to be different from brick and mortar to virtual. So all that's just going to be a little bit more of like sped specific when you start in the summer before you actually go into your other trainings. But like Alyssa said, your trainings don't stop when your trainings stop in the summer. You have them all year long. You have your mentor teachers. You have literally anyone you reach out to, they will help you no matter what.
Answer. I saw someone asking about their on their page. It says my presence. Under actions, it says none. Will that change as I move through the process? Basically, with the after you apply, typically they run between 4 to 6 weeks as far as when they're reviewing applicants. That's just because of the amount of positions that we have open. But if you are chosen to move forward, you will receive more information as far as next steps on your interview. That's typically done through HireView. And I do see, another question was, are interviews happening soon for general education positions? And I think, Jill, were you answering this? I saw your name come up.
Yeah, sure. We are in the process of reviewing applicants as they come in, and the hiring managers and teams are reviewing those, simultaneously. So I guess my answer would be we're always interviewing. There isn't necessarily a designated time that we interview. I think, as the applications come up, we're reviewing and setting up interviews. And then to Tanya, you had a question about how long does it take to get feedback back after you've done your interview? I think at this point in time, we're around a week to 2 weeks before we have a final decision after someone is interviewed with us, sometimes sooner. But if you haven't heard, reach out to me. I think Tanya, you and I have touched bases a few times. Reach out to me after this, and then we can, look a little bit further as to where you're at in the process.
Right. I saw someone asking about the class size, and I'll just say over the mic, it does, I'm just reading Kristen's answer, that it does vary as far as the size, depending on the grade level, the subject, if it's intervention level, the same way as brick and mortar.
I wanted to add on too for the class size, because this might be something to explain to make it easier to imagine. So, and this might be different depending on gen ed, but for special ed, you have your caseload and they're divided, and you have a small caseload, but you even further divide that caseload into what classes and what groups they're in. So I may have 12 to 15 on my caseload, but I'm separating them into 2 different math classes. And so my math classes actually only have maybe like 5 to 8 kids in that one group. So the sizes kind of depends how you break up your classrooms as well. Just to clarify that.
Thank you.
Yes, it's for sales only. Thank you.
This is Carly. For elementary school too, we typically have a bigger number of students on your actual homeroom roster, but when you're teaching live sessions, you usually don't have more than 20 to 25 kids in a session. And then when you have those intervention sessions, that's usually even smaller, hopefully about a dozen to 15 when you're doing like my reading groups, for example, have a much smaller number of students at a time.
Okay, and someone was asking as far as can elementary teachers teach 1 or 2 subjects? Are you expected to teach all subjects?
So we do teach all subjects. Our live instruction typically is around math and the language arts subjects. We'll incorporate some of the history or social studies, science into some of our reading or math sessions, or that might be some of our classroom building activities, our community building activities on Friday. But typically you make lesson plans that are centered mostly around your ELA and math hour standards.
Just to tag on to what Carly was saying too, in addition to our live classes, the students do have an online learning system as well, where they have additional courses too. So while we might not be giving a direct instruction on science every day, they do still see it on a daily plan they have within their online learning system, where they can go in and they'll have their additional courses there as well.
Someone's asking about what does homework look like? I'm guessing is that
It's
something
very much like what Alyssa just explained. There is an online learning system. So while we meet students in the classroom in live sessions to review material, there is an online learning system that walks them through a lesson, and that's essentially their homework.
I would like to piggyback on that, and also maybe Erica can clarify too if this is just sales or all special education. For sales at least, they self-contained, they need to attend live classes. I do not think they have access to an OLS. All of their content is delivered by us. And so our homework looks a little different, where the homework is determined by the teacher based on what's being taught and what resources we use. Yes, so it is sales only. So that is one difference, is that requirement of attending live classes for every subject, and the homework is determined by the teacher.
any other? Okay, I'm seeing another question they're asking about if you miss a class. I guess this is pertaining to the student. Do absences, if we have to miss a class, is there a fine to pay? Do absences have to be earned? Teacher absence. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
I would say no. Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine it's typically for us, like if we miss a class, I mean, we have people we can use as substitutes, but there's also other ways to get around that depending on the situation. But I'm not familiar with that scenario that you're asking about. So I would say no from my perspective.
So what I can say, at least for speaking for elementary, is that you have paid time off. You can take your days as you choose to use them. Typically, when we're out of the office, you don't have to write maybe lengthy sub-plans like you would for if you were in the brick and mortar, but typically we'll send out some sort of alternate assignment for our live sessions. This is what I'd like you to work on and send in this response, or make a recording video that the students need to watch and send a response. So they won't miss their instruction, but you can be out of the office.
So for are all SPED classrooms at high school level self-contained? So there's going to be different levels within special ed. So I'm within the self-contained, so I see the kids who have a higher need that need to be with the teachers for ELA, math, and their social studies and science. But there is two other levels of resource and DI, direct instruction. So that just depends on the minutes. The resource is a lower level of minutes. DI, direct instruction, is like that in between um, that and sales, self-contained. So as with every school, if you decide as an IEP team that the student needs more minutes or less minutes, that might change with who the teacher is as a case manager. So if I had a student that came from direct instruction, um, we all came in together as a team to decide the minutes, and that they decided they needed more minutes, so they would come to self-contained. So that's just for me in high school, for self-contained. But like I said, there's that resource and direct instruction level of special ed as well.
And I think we may have answered the question, but I saw someone asking about what's the type of learning management system that is used.
In the middle school and high school, it's called the OMHS for online middle and high school, but it's actually a derivative of D2L. So if you're familiar with D2L, that's the platform, the learning platform. And then we use Neuro as our delivery platform. It's similar to Zoom. It's kind of takes the best of Blackboard Collaborate, if you know that, and it's whiteboard features and the interactive video features of Zoom, and melds those together.
And then I saw one about what kind of curriculum teachers use. I'm assuming, like, do you create your own, or that's based off of?
So since the students have their online lessons that they're doing independent of your live instruction every day, teachers may often pull their live instruction from those resources or add additional supports in there for live instructions, just to enhance it or to scaffold things a little bit more clearly for students.
And then I would say for self-contained, there's a lot more flexibility in that, since there is not that platform. You're given a number of resources. Our base resource is Unique Learning System, if you're familiar with that. And then we have a number of other resources like RAS Kids, IXL, MobiMax, Ginzy, so many ones. I can't even think of them all, but you have all those resources to pull to create individualized lessons for special education students. We also have a curriculum map to follow. We were just working on that. So that's another plus that I never got to do as a teacher, to have a direct hand in the curriculum map for my special ed students. And so you get to participate in that process and make sure you're covering your standards, but also recognizing, knowing what you're going to be covering as a special education teacher, since you do make more individualized, lessons based on student need. But you do have all those resources at your fingertips to use, and the flexibility to use them how you want.
But something to note is that Stride K-12 is a curriculum company. I mean, we create our own curriculum. It's amazing. And not only do we use it at our schools, but other schools actually seek out our curriculum to use. So the curriculum that's in our systems is renowned, and it's ours, and we've created it, and it's wonderful.
And just to touch base, I know that Karen was asking about the resources being provided by the school. Just speaking on behalf of the special ed self-contained, if it's a paid type of resource, it is provided by the school. And with our with the self-contained principal, we always go to her for telling her new things that we we think of. And sometimes like I know this coming year she was talking about a few other resources that she's going to add because some of the other teachers used trials this year, and she's adding that onto our resources list for next year. So it's nice knowing that we can bounce ideas off of one another, but if it's something that we can all benefit from, it's something that they're going to look at investing into for the next school year. So that's really nice to know.
Our families are also sent a whole lot of resources as well. So before the school year begins, they are sent boxes of curriculum to help their students throughout the school year. So there are workbook consumables that the students get to write in that they get to keep every year. So if you ever want to do a workbook page with your students, have them bring their workbooks with them to class. With the younger kids, I think my favorite materials that they're sent out is they're given a box of math manipulatives. Brick and mortar classroom, I had to pay for all that on my own. So we weren't given, these great math resources where every single child is sent a math kit. So with my first graders, if we're practicing and we want to use base 10 blocks, I just tell them, I put a slide up at the very beginning as they're logging in saying, grab your base 10 blocks and a whiteboard today, and we'll help write answers and show each other and build with our base 10 blocks to show equations. So the resources not only that the teachers are given, but that the students are given as well is very impressive.
Yeah, and I wanted to add that this was something that I had asked about. And one of the things that I love was that typically I can ask for something and almost immediately I'm given that resource, even if it's something that needs to be mailed. And so I had heard about these resources the students had, and I was like, oh, is that something I could have? And they're like, oh, yeah. And I started in the middle of the year. So there was kind of that catching up, but they said they just mailed to me right away the box of what they had sent the kids. So I have like the same manipulatives they have for math. I have the same science manipulatives. I have all that stuff that I can physically have that they have. So it's not so much of that, they can see exactly what they need, which is something that's just really necessary sometimes in special ed. You need those visual supports. So I thought that was fantastic that I could ask for those things and have them so quickly.
Great. I just checking through the chat box to see if there are any new questions. I'm not seeing any, but for our staff, if there are any final thoughts that you wanted to share before we wrap up today, feel free to jump on the microphone.
I wanted to add, asking about the videos. I know that when I went through the hiring process, I was wondering the same thing. And while I was going through my process and talking with the person who, was doing the interviews and whatnot with me, I had asked for examples and I was given examples of videos of that specific kind of instruction. So, the grade level, the content, that subject area. So it is definitely a resource when you're going through the hiring process you can ask for.
I would just add before we go too, I think as a teacher, we're so used to, I think, overextending ourselves at times and working those crazy hours nonstop. This is the first year I feel like in education, I really do have a work-life balance as well. I mean, we're still working our structured 40 hours a week, but you don't have to drive to work. You don't have to drive home from work. When I have my lunchtime, if I want to do a crock pot meal for dinner, I'll throw everything in my crock pot and then go back to work during my lunchtime. So it's fun with some of the flexibility you have just by working at home within that structured time as well, to have that balance as something that I've never really had before in the classroom too. So it's just kind of one of those added benefits. If you have furry friends at home, I don't know if you can see, but my dog joins me in class every morning too. So the kids always get excited when they can see their pets also, especially with the younger grades. So it brings in exactly, no classroom upkeep costs as well. So that's just kind of one of the fun things addition to just the regular work as well.
I just saw a question in the chat asking if students are at home or at school. The majority of them are working from home, but we do have, I forget what they're called, blended learning centers. So sometimes students are at the blended learning centers. Now those have been, because of COVID, they were closed. And so I believe they were starting to open back up. So there is that option for some students, but majority of the time they are at home.
And I wanted to say also, each student, this is especially important in the younger grades too, when parents or guardians sign their students up for our school, they have to designate a learning coach. So in elementary school, we tell our learning coaches, which are typically parents or grandparents, guardians, we're in this partnership that I'm doing some of the instruction, but they're doing a lot of instruction and side by side with their students at home as well. So you are constantly communicating with your students and the learning coach, and learning coaches are getting used to the idea that it's not just open up the computer and let your kids watch. It's actively participating and in a good partnership to help your students succeed. So what is surprising, I feel, about online instruction with our school specifically is that, as we've mentioned before, you would think it would be really difficult to make connections with your students and connections with your coworkers. But on the opposite, you're in constant communication with your peers. You're talking and you're seeing your students often. I send them little things in the mail. So that community is that shared community is, you're able to develop that even online.
Okay, I just saw somebody ask about is there a rule about cameras and audio being always on or off for students? And I saw they answered, cameras need to always be on for staff, and we encourage them to be on for students. All right. Well, I don't see any other new questions, so I just want to thank all of our staff from both schools joining us today and telling us a little bit about their experience working at either Arizona Virtual or Insight Arizona. And again, if you haven't followed us already, please follow us at Careers at Stride, either on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Again, you can join our talent community to hear more about events that are going on. Our next webinar that we will be having is in June, on June 9th, which is What's Your Why? So you'll be able to hear from some other teachers from across all of our schools, just hearing about their experience and how they made the decision to join Stride. So if you're interested, you can definitely register for that. We'll be making that available soon on our website. And again, if you weren't able to join in at the very beginning, this has been recorded, and we will be sending that out to all of our registrants, as well as putting it on our YouTube page. But again, I do want to thank everyone for joining. My name is Andrea Wilson, and I will see you all next time. Thanks, everyone.